Hey guys, Britt here. Welcome to End Times Bible Prophecy. Make sure to hit the subscribe, like, and share buttons. Well, this sets the stage for a new global order, meaning power is going to shift away from the United States toward who knows right now. We're going to talk about that in a second. But what am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about, again, what's happening in the Red Sea. This is a very big story. We hear it mentioned in the mainstream media, but not in its proper context of what it means globally. It's a big deal. It's the end of an era, the end of the post-Cold War era dominated by the United States. Now, that doesn't mean the United States has lost all power, but we're seeing a transition away from that power. So let's take a look at this article right here to get an idea of what's been going on. This is from Market Watch. It says U.S. and British jets strike Houthi sites in Yemen in response to militant surge in Red Sea attacks. It says the United States and Britain struck 18 Houthi targets in Yemen, answering a recent surge in attacks by the Iran-backed militia group on ships in the Red Sea and Gulf of Aden, including a missile strike this past week that set fire to a cargo vessel. So these attacks have increased. We had Operation Prosperity Guardian, launched by the United States and a group of allies. Back in December, this was supposed to make the Red Sea safe for the free flow of commerce, freely navigable waters. We've talked about exactly how important that is. That's really next to the security of the United States. That's the primary mission of the U.S. military, and it's failing in that mission right now. I don't necessarily see how it's going to succeed under current circumstances. Again, short of destroying Yemen, attacking and destroying the entire country, I don't know how they get these attacks to stop with the conventional weapon systems they're using. It says this is the fourth time that the U.S. and British militaries have conducted a combined operation against the Houthis since January 12th. But the United States has also been carrying out almost daily strikes to take out Houthi targets, including incoming missiles and drones aimed at ships, as well as weapons that were prepared to launch. So we had the beginning of the month, the USS Gravely came within seconds of being hit by a cruise missile. We had one ship sunk, not in the U.S. Navy, but in a container vessel. We've had numerous ships get hit, have to leave the area. This is getting worse, not better. This says the United States will not hesitate to take action as needed to defend lives and the free flow of commerce. Here they are making the statement that we've been talking about for months now. In one of the world's most critical waterways, U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said, "We will continue to make clear to the Houthis that they will bear the consequences if they do not stop their illegal attacks." I'm not sure how he thinks they're making it clear or continuing in that and what consequences they're bearing, because the attacks have only accelerated. So let's read on, come down here a little bit more. It says President Joe Biden and other senior leaders have repeatedly warned that the United States won't tolerate the Houthi attacks against commercial shipping. But the counterattacks haven't appeared to diminish their campaign against shipping in the region, which the militants say is over Israel's war with Hamas and the Gaza Strip. And who knows if that's even the case, guys, because there are huge geopolitical consequences to this. As we pointed out, BRICS nations' ships, certain ships are able to freely pass through the Red Sea. So the free flow of commerce is available to certain nations in the world, but not the United States and its allies. This says our aim remains to de-escalate tensions and restore stability in the Red Sea, but we will once again reiterate our warning to the Houthi leadership. We will not hesitate to continue to defend lives and the free flow of commerce in the face of continued threats, said the Saturday statement. The Houthis have launched at least 57 attacks on commercial and military ships in the Red Sea and Gulf of Aden since November 19th, and the pace has picked up in recent days. So it's picked up in recent days after hundreds of strikes on targets in Yemen. Hundreds. We've certainly seen in the past 48 to 72 hours an increase in attacks from the Houthis, Pentagon spokeswoman Sabrina Singh said in a briefing Thursday, and she acknowledged that the Houthis have not been deterred. So United States deterrent, the deterrent capability of the United States military, outside of nuclear weapons, so there's still a deterrent capability, but on a regional basis like this, and in protecting waterways, making them freely navigable for international trade, it is gone. There is no deterrent capability conventionally from the United States Navy anymore. That's what this is telling us, or really any Navy. We never said we wiped off the map all their capabilities, she told reporters. We know that they maintain a large arsenal. They're very capable. They have sophisticated weapons, and that's because they continue to get them from Iran. So, this is understandable because Iran is supplying them. This is a rebel group in a small country, taking on the United States Navy. And, it's completely understandable because they're getting weapons from a middling power. I'm not saying that Iran is not powerful. They certainly are, but they're not the chief primary adversary of the United States. That would be China or Russia, who have nuclear weapons, vast capabilities, akin to, somewhat equal to the United States. Although at this point I would say they probably surpass the United States because the United States seems to have fallen way behind in all of these different capabilities. Guys, this is not good. This leads to a period of time where you could call it an interregnum, a period of transition away from this era of global dominance by the United States to some other time. Perhaps the next dominant power is the Antichrist empire, the global empire the Bible speaks of. Maybe there's another power in between there somewhere. Maybe the Gog of Magog alliance becomes that power. We don't know. We'll have to wait and see. There could just be a period of chaos between now and then, but it is clear that the United States conventional capabilities have been surpassed technologically when these drones, just simple drone attacks, and again, we're in the very early days, rudimentary, crude drones are being used to defeat the United States military. And again, no ships have been sunk. Let's hope that remains the case. But the deterrent capability is gone, and that has enormous consequences. Let's look at what some of those are. We see this from oilprice.com. It says Houthi Red Sea attacks are boon for pirates as ships reroute. So ships are having to reroute around Africa. And we have pirates operating not just off of the Somali coast, but also in the Gulf of Guinea. And so they're facing pirates basically along that entire voyage. And then we read here again, buried. They always put the lead down, several paragraphs down. Western and Israeli-linked ships paying 50% extra insurance premiums. So think about that for a minute. It says it's unlikely that surging piracy off African waters will persuade shipping companies to return to the Red Sea anytime soon. So they're facing increased piracy risk, but that pales in comparison to simply going through the Red Sea because of these missile and drone attacks. It's unlikely the surging piracy on African waters will persuade shipping companies to return to the Red Sea anytime soon due to the even higher risk of facing Houthi attacks coupled with exorbitant insurance premiums being levied on ships plying the Red Sea. underwriters have started charging ships linked to the United States, British, and Israeli companies as much as 50% extra in war risk premiums to navigate the Red Sea due to the persistent threat of attacks. So shipping has become much more expensive, particularly for the United States and its allies, and in particular the United States, the UK, and Israel. So clearly, the deterrent impact of the United States Navy, in this case, is gone, guys, and this is a big deal. This means the end of an era. We've talked about the 19th century was dominated by the British Empire, and the Royal Navy ruled the world seas and opened up these shipping lanes for trade, and therefore they became the dominant economic power. The British pound was the world's reserve currency, and the center of international finance was London. But then once their power began to wane, post-World War I, that transitioned to the United States, and the United States Navy took on that role the Royal Navy had in the 19th century. So for the 20th century, we saw the economic power of the world become the United States. And the dollar became the world's reserve currency, and the center of international finance moved from London to New York. Now we are seeing the era of U.S. dominance come to an end. And I want to take a look at this tweet right here. Not necessarily familiar with this person's work, Radigan Carter, but I saw this tweet and I thought this is spot on. We need to take a look at this. So he says, U.S. Navy leadership calling the Red Sea largest naval battle since World War II, which is what they've stated and said. It says, to put that in perspective, the last great naval battle of World War II was the Battle of Leyte Gulf in 1944. Was the last naval battle which involved battleship against battleship engagements and featured organized kamikaze attacks against aircraft carriers. Was the largest naval engagement in the history of the world as the Empire of the Rising Sun was killed and the first global hegemon rose based on the ability to project power in every ocean of the world. Exactly, that's what I've been saying. This is a symbiotic cycle where the United States, being the dominant economic power, gives them the ability to project global power across the globe, global military power. That ability to project global military power across the globe then gives the United States the ability to be the world's economic superpower. If either one of those goes away, the other one does too. He says, now dudes in flip-flops are engaging U.S. maritime power without a navy, just drones, ballistic missiles, and macho videos. People cheering as Russia's Black Sea ships slip can't speak. People cheering as Russia's Black Sea ships slip below the waves are not extrapolating how cheap and widespread this tech will become. So there have been drones used in the Russia-Ukraine war, where Ukraine has sunk Russian ships, and that's what he's talking about here. They're cheering that, but they don't understand what all of this means. He says, and how that technology will be integrated with drone and ballistic missiles to present a combined air, surface, and submerged unmanned vehicle attack against us in choke points where maneuverability is restricted. How global perception of U.S. maritime power changes and how that shift affects countries' views on trade, defense, and finance will be interesting to see. A lot hinges on the Red Sea. If dudes in flip-flops are able to keep restricting ship movements, then not only will that approach proliferate to every naval choke point, but freedom of navigation sails by a U.S. carrier strike group goes from being a threat to a parade on the ocean. The 21st century naval equivalent of cadets marching in 19th century formations with fixed bayonets and no firing pins. Pretty to look at, but no longer useful for war. Do you understand the implications of what he's talking about here? The change in technology has rendered conventional weapons, the conventional military capability of the United States, obsolete. And really, not just the United States, all the world's conventional military capabilities. And again, we're in the rudimentary early days of this. So he's saying basically the U.S. naval fleet, and I wouldn't include nuclear armed submarines in this. So that's not part of this, but he's saying anything floating on the water really looks nice. It's like a parade, similar to, you go to West Point and you see everybody in nice uniforms and they're marching and it looks nice, but that's about all it's useful for. It's no longer useful for war. So the United States floating navy is obsolete now. Now they could change that. We could see investments put into new technological capabilities for this next era. Will we see that? The Bible says no. And based on what needs to take place, I would think that the military-industrial complex isn't going to necessarily like that, because the conventional companies that are supplying these weapons programs, there's not as much money to be made, maybe not even any money to be made for those conventional players, because it's moving to software and AI is where the investment needs to be made, and in systems that can manufacture drones at much lower cost. Because the future of warfare, well, the present of warfare is drone warfare, and the future of warfare is even more sophisticated drones than what we're seeing already. So already, again, we're in the crude, early, elementary, beginning stages of drone warfare. They already dominate the battlefield in Russia, Ukraine. They're dominating the Red Sea right now. I don't see any more sophistication developing from U.S. naval defenses as far as anti-ballistic missile and drone technology. But I see these drones getting smaller, faster, cheaper, more powerful, smarter. All of these things. This is the future. So when we talk about drone swarms dominating the future battlefield, we can look up, here's what comes up in Google Images if you look up drone swarms. And of course they have these, these are drones we see on the battlefield now, maybe not in the number we see in some of these. Here's a rendition of a future drone. Here's one with a long-range drone, and it's lighting all these little drones off. But when we talk about future drone swarms, this is more what we're talking about. This is a swarm of grasshoppers. Imagine they're controlled, computer-controlled, by an enemy military, an invading nation. How do you guard against that? How about this? This is a picture of locusts swarming the area. Imagine that these are all enemy munitions capable of destroying you, destroying your tanks, destroying your military equipment. And how do you combat that from a conventional standpoint? It's going to be very difficult. This is a challenge. This is the challenge that the world faces in the future. About this, there's a swarm of bees. This whole thing can move from side to side like a school of fish in the ocean. Imagine the swarm being directed the way we see an individual drone directed today. And you start to get a glimpse of what the future looks like. How mutual assured destruction also will become obsolete, and how one nation or group of nations that develops these technologies first can use them to completely dominate the globe, create a global empire, an empire where people say, who could make war against the beast? Which is exactly what we read in Revelation chapter 13. So guys, All of what we're seeing, this sets the stage for a new global order. Power is shifting away from the United States. U.S. conventional deterrent capability is gone, not going away, it's gone. It's very clear. We've gone 2.5 months now in the Red Sea since Operation Prosperity Guardian was announced. Attacks are only accelerating. And there's so much at stake. It's not just more expensive shipping cost for the world. It's not just delayed commerce that's at stake. It's the credibility of the United States Navy and the United States military and its ability to secure the waterways, not just in the Red Sea, but as that tweet said, every naval choke point in the world. There are far more important ones than the Red Sea. How about the Persian Gulf? If they're saying, well, they're only doing this because Iran is supplying them with the weapons. Well, Iran sits right at the Strait of Hormuz, guarding who enters and leaves the Persian Gulf, where like 40% of the world's exported oil travels through that strait. What if Iran decides, you know what, let's turn the Persian Gulf, let's do to that what we've done to the Red Sea. What does that mean for the global economy? What does that mean for U.S. power? What does that mean in terms of war? Would it spark world war, a complete world war? So this is a dangerous situation. We're transitioning out of this period of global dominance by the United States to something else. It's not yet the BRICS. We see the BRICS are gaining in power and influence, but they're not dominating the globe by any stretch of the imagination. So who will? What powers will emerge on the other side of this? We very well may see chaos until we see the Antichrist and the final world empire, this global empire foretold in the Bible, comes and establishes that deterrent ability. So what do you think? Leave your comments below. Make sure to hit the like, share, and subscribe buttons. And God willing, I will see you on Wednesday. Bye. If you want to learn more about the end times and Bible prophecy, make sure to sign up for my free monthly newsletter and get your copy of my free ebook, 7 Signs of the End Times. Just follow the link in the description to get your free book. Also, make sure to check out all of my books. Just look up Britt on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Apple iBooks, Google Books, Kobo, or anywhere books are sold. Thanks for watching today, and until next time, keep your eyes fixed on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith.